Hey guys, WildRyce here, and welcome back to another Ori and the Will of the Wisps challenge. Today, we will be answering the question as to whether or not you can beat the game without collecting 4 major in-world collectibles in the game. Spirit Light, Shards, Gorlek ore, and Cells, both energy and life. For ease of a proper naming of the challenge run, it will be abbreviated to a no SSGC challenge. I want to preface this video by saying that we will be going over the 3 different runs I had completed for this challenge, although the first 2 I will not be going into too much depth. I also want to mention that the last 2 runs were streamed on Twitch, so if you'd like to see more Ori content, challenges, or more, feel free to join me as I am currently streaming on Wednesdays at 11:30 AM MST or 5:30 PM UTC. I also want to mention the spoiler warning now. If you have not yet played Ori and the Will of the Wisps and want to avoid spoilers, I recommend playing the game for yourself and then coming back to see the challenge. With all of that out of the way, let's get on to the rules of the run. As the name of the challenge suggests, we cannot collect any of the following: no Spirit Light, which can be collected from Spirit Light containers in the world, killing enemies, or breaking certain environmental objects, and certain quests. No Shards, and by extension no Shard slots, no Gorlek ore, and no Cells or Cell fragments. These are collected from in-world pickups and from completing any of the major fights or certain story sequences in the game. For this challenge, we are allowing backup saves, so if we accidentally collect any of the above, we can revert to before this happened, as it just saves a bit of time if something happens. This feature will also be used for a major trick later in the video. Similar to my True Lightless run, we will not be utilizing the full game skip that is used by the unrestricted speedrun category, as although it means basically any no collect runs are possible, to me it removes any challenge within the game as a whole. We will start out by talking a little bit about the evolution of this challenge. As with my True Lightless run I had done a while back, I had little worries about Spirit Light as I had found the skip to avoid the 2 main Spirit Light quest rewards from Gorlek. Shards and Gorlek ore were trivial as well, as Gorlek ore is not needed for anything besides rebuilding the glades, and Shards just make Ori stronger to make fights easier, but are not required. At first, Cells seemed like they were going to be just fine to skip also since they are in-world pickups, though in my first run I realized that Cells were going to be the first major roadblock of the run. If you are unfamiliar with the mechanics of the game, anytime you collect one of the 5 Wisps, they also instantly give you a full life and energy cell, which is added to this count here. This is how we will be tracking whether or not we collect any of the following, with the numbers shown being a baseline. After some initial testing for the first run, which I had done still with a pretty minimal understanding of the game, I eventually decided to just allow Wisp cells, as to me they were technically not collectibles, and I did not feel like stressing myself finding a way for that run. This meant that after my initial run, I had collected all 5 Wisps, completing the game with having 5 minimum collected for this challenge. I decided to revisit this challenge 1 month later after playing Ori on and off a lot and learning a vast amount of tricks, sequence breaks, and more. With a fresh view on this challenge, I set off once again with the goal of at least lowering the minimum to 1 Wisp, the first Wisp given to us by Gorlek. I knew from days of testing prior to this run that it would be next to impossible to skip this Wisp, so I decided to accept the 1 Wisp, do a speedrun strategy called Feeding Ground Skip, which allows you to freely roam the feeding grounds to an extent without having to do the cat and mouse sequence. This means I can get the burrow ability early, head back through feeding grounds without fear of dying, and make my way to the end of the game. Using this skip allowed me to ignore the Gorlek fight in Luma Pools, the Mora fight in Moldwood Depths, the Avalanche escape in Bower's Reach, and the Sandworm escape in Windtorn Ruins, knocking off the 4 other Wisps and their cells. There was still one problem though: Gorlek's Wisp. With how much time I had put into learning so many different tricks, skips, and the like, I felt that there must be something that can be done to avoid having to collect this Wisp. My first thought was going to the water wheel early, just outside of Luma Pools, which in turn would give me access to the Wellspring to do the Wellspring Escape. I thought that if I was able to overwrite the initial Gorlek quest that gives me the Wisp, I would be free to go past him without the extra cells given. Unfortunately, this required utilizing a glitch called Bash Invincibility, which was not the problem to get, but keeping the invincibility was where this idea fell through. See, you lose Bash Invincibility if you do a new Bash, which unfortunately the only way to access the Wellspring from this area was to bash a projectile into a wall while underwater, and due to the water still being dirty, meant I would die within moments. This path led me to some even more disappointing news, as I decided to use debug to test the theory of overwriting the quest after the Wellspring Escape, just to find out that if it was possible to do the sequence break without Bash, you are still force given the life and energy cell seemingly out of thin air after passing a certain trigger here. I guess from my understanding, the game sets up a giant trigger area for giving the Wisp cells that spans up to this point all the way to where Ori stands during the cutscene, which if you have either talked to Gorlek once or have completed the Wellspring Escape, once you enter you will be given these if you do not already have them, even though you are not given the Wisp. My last test of this run was to attempt to do a cutscene lift, which would hopefully allow me to lift past the cutscene trigger and the Wisp trigger, get past Gorlek, giving me free access to the right side of the map. I won't get into how all of this works as it is a bit complex and I am not nearly knowledgeable on them. I'll link a video in the description by a user named Dishwasher Charm that goes into how to do them. Unfortunately, from all my testing, both incorrectly doing it and proper after some time, I came to the conclusion that where I was able to do the cutscene lift from was exactly where the trigger was, cancelling the cutscene lift and resetting Ori's position. It may be possible as well that my timing was incorrect due to this trick being tied to load times, meaning longer load times yield better results, but from a timing standpoint, where I was getting sent back seemed to correlate to where the trigger would activate. I decided to stop with this idea and look into other ways. After some research, testing, and theory crafting with a member of the speedrunning Discord, a trick that I thought wouldn't be reachable or usable started to seem the only route to take. This trick is one used in a category called REO, or Reversed Event Order. The setup here requires having Bash Invincibility, making my way up to this high ledge, clipping out of bounds, doing another clip out of the terrain, swimming right, then up precisely to get out of the water, and make my way towards a checkpoint trigger that clips just under the main play area. I spent a week practicing this using debug to simulate each portion of the skip, as I was unable to get it all in one go, just practicing each part until I could basically consistently get it down. The following week after my second attempt, I started anew with a plan in mind, and the goal of managing to hopefully get this skip put together. For now, let's hop into the general route of the run. Inkwater was of course a breeze, just being careful of positioning when killing the lizard doggo so as not to collect spirit light. There is a skip to do above with the torch, though I found it easier to go the intended way instead. Howl doesn't have any drops, so we can freely make our way to Spirit Edge easily, and do the minor skip to make our way to Double Jump. All of Gorlek's is pretty safe, being careful of what enemies you kill and where you kill them. Getting dash is a breeze, and we can fight the Hornbug with relative ease from a distance. Down to Bash, we open up the gate towards Moldwood's entrance, or later. From here, we make our way back down through Inkwater towards the Regenerate tree. To get the Bash invincibility, we lead this Mantis from the right over, bash him into position, which is a lot harder than it looks with how slippery and buggy they can be, and after getting the right position, achieve invincibility. Now, we just have to make our way back to Moldwood's entrance and attempt the skip. A whole week of practicing all the segments, unconnected, rested on this moment, and after a bit, I managed to get this attempt. Drop when I want it to, so that's the problem with the slowdown effect. I am using a... There we go. Okay, we got the clip early. I was practicing last night and I couldn't get it for like 10-15 minutes. Basically what I was doing was lagging the game to make the inputs a lot easier. Come on. And now I can't get this clip? This is supposed to be the easy clip. Hello? Oh, there we go. This is the easy clip. Okay. So, I'm gonna turn up brightness. So this can at least be... Oh, my brightness is already up all the way. You should be able to see a little bit of Ori. Basically, we swim along here, go up. We are on the right side of the screen there. Okay. Oop. I gotta be very careful here. Last thing I need is to fall out of this. This is being really jank. This is the most jank I've ever had with this area. Okay. Come on. There we go, okay. Okay, we're up. Okay. There's Gorlek vibing. That's a fun little bug. Okay. So we need a backup save at 30:53. Okay. We've gotten it. We got it. We were past. The only thing that stood in our way now was praying that after the coup section, when we find ourselves back in Gorlek's Hollow, that we are not instantly given the cells from earlier, which seemed unlikely since we haven't talked to Gorlek nor completed the Wellspring Escape, but the fear was still ever present. We have to do a trick called Silent Swim to access Silent Woods, but since we have Bash Invincibility, this can be done easily. Silent Woods is pretty safe from drops, so long as distance is kept from the exploding, floating, frog-like creatures and letting any drops despawn if need be. And not flapping the leaf piles this time around. After losing Coup, we find ourselves in the spot of worry, and thankfully enough, we have not received the cells. All that is left for us to do is head back into Silent Woods once again, make our way through Feeding Grounds by skipping it. Although I realized while writing this that since I would actually still have Bash Invincibility, I didn't actually need to do the skip, as Shriek cannot actually instant kill you with the invincibility active. And we make our way to go get Burrow. This was the final roadblock I found in this run, in which there was no clear way to actually get up into Windswept Wastes without grapple. This meant we would need to find a way to get into the Wellspring, which means either triggering Gorlek to open the way to the Glades and in turn getting the cells, or reattempting the water wheel path somehow. Luckily, I remembered a trick I had been practicing called ability swapping, which allows Ori to gain vertical height when activating either Blaze or Flash, swapping off them at a certain animation point, and re-equipping them to allow for chaining it. Blaze was off the table for two reasons. First, it used one energy cell per use for the ability swap, and 2, we would have to buy it. Flash, on the other hand, we could find in Moldwood Depths, and when doing the ability swap with it, it does not expend any energy, allowing for basically infinite height gain. So we head down into Moldwood, making our way through the darkness, which thankfully does not kill us due to the invincibility, and collect Flash with little difficulty. We make our way back to the Wastes, do a few ability swaps, and make our way up to Burrow Tree. All that stood in our way now is the Elevator Arena and Willow's End. The elevator was pretty straightforward, especially since I had decided to keep the invincibility here, so all I had to focus on was avoiding any of the Gorlek's drops. We can get launch easily, and even use it as it does not remove the bash invincibility. In Willow's End, we can clear out most of the Willow Hearts one by one with relative ease, with all but one being a little bit of a pain. Since each of the hearts have a focus on certain abilities, there is one that requires bashing to complete. This means we would lose bash invincibility for the final fight and other Willow Hearts, so I decided to leave it for last. When fighting the Willowstone, I recommend making sure to land the killing blow away from it, as to not have to go through what I did during this run. With all of those out of the way, we do the last heart by doing an optional trick called Quidditch by bringing a different projectile to break the wall, and make our way into the final fight. This fight, with base energy, base health, base damage, and no shards upgrades, is by no means an easy fight. Although we could have gotten the 2 Ancestral Lights to increase our damage, I was also doing a sub-challenge on limiting how many inventory items are collected as well, and I also did not feel like losing bash invincibility to get Midnight Burrow's Ancestral Light. For the final fight, we have limited resources to work with that minimum 2 attacks being enough to kill us if not healed in between, and limited healing due to the low energy cells and little energy crystals to work that take a long time to respawn. This can also happen during the escape, which was a first for me. The last 2 phases will take some time, precision, and careful positioning with our state, but after some time, we can land the final blow on Shriek and say that it is indeed possible to complete the game without collecting any Spirit Light, Shards, Gorlek ore, or cells. This run was a lot of fun to route, by far one of the more difficult challenges that I have taken on, and I am proud to have proven that not only it can be done in this fashion, but with how much I have grown in the game as a whole. None of this would have been possible without the help of the Discord community, namely Tekopar, who found a way to do the initial Out of Bounds clip without other abilities, and Phobos, who was the one who spent some time testing different clips to get Out of Bounds swim, and was just an amazing person to talk to about other runs. With that, I want to thank you all for watching, and a huge thank you to all those who had helped in the Discord with this challenge. This was an absolute blast to achieve, and I'm excited for the future content I have planned related to challenge runs and more. To end off, if you have any feedback, challenge ideas, or just want to say hi, feel free to leave a comment in this video. I'd love to hear any other ideas or ways I can improve the content I am putting out on Ori, or even future content. You can probably tell I'm not the most narrative person in the world, but I would love to hear thoughts on the flow of these types of videos and what I talk about for these runs. Anyways, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.